welcome back, and thanks for coming to day 1057 of me not putting my real face on the internet. Come take a look what I got going on today. Alright, in this video I want to go through everything that I use to make my grow a smart grow. This is the Eve Energy Wi-Fi outlet. I use them extensively and exclusively. And these are the parabolic pumps that I use to feed my nutrients into my reservoir. I use these in conjunction together using the Apple Home Mini. The Apple Home Mini is the brain and the hub of the system that I've developed, and I really kind of developed it just by trial and error. This is the Apple Home Mini. You can get it from Apple, obviously. And you can control your smart home. That's the part that we need to do to make our grow an automated smart grow. Pretty cool. It only costs like $100, and that is the brain behind controlling all of the different pieces. We'll go through it all. It works amazingly. It really only has a couple hiccups, but you know, out in the grand scheme of things, that's not really that bad. What we're looking at is the interface. This is the app that you get on the iPhone. So needless to say, I use an iPhone. It's not my fault. Apple is better than Samsung. The jury's out. Get an iPhone. I know that the Apple Home Mini creates an ecosystem where all of the pieces of the puzzle work together. And it's easy. It works on its own. All you have to do is connect all the pieces. And now we're going to take a look at the Eve outlets on Amazon. I get them in a 2-pack, and there's a couple of important details to know about using these outlets. Well, I guess one, the price. A 2-pack is $70. It's really not that bad with the functionality that it gives you, but you need to make sure that they are threaded and they work with, here, what's it say here? Matter. So those two terms, threaded and matter, means that they can talk to the Apple Home Mini. And next is the parabolic pump. This pump is fed with a silicone hose coming out of one end, sucking out of the nutrients, and then I have a silicone hose coming out of the other end, the outlet, and that's dosing the reservoir. And since I use drip hydro nutrients, I have like 5 or 6 nutrient bottles that I need to dose. So I have a pump that's dedicated for each one. When it comes to the A and B food, I actually have 2 pumps, one for each A and B, but they're on one outlet. So when I turn one outlet on, both of those foods feed into the reservoir. And I've done a lot of research. I understand that's not ideal, but that's what we got to do. And this is the electric valve that I use. I also turn these on or off using the Eve Wi-Fi outlet. And they are automatically off, and that means that when they do not have power, they turn themselves off. And that is a good thing because, hey, you lose power. You don't want water going through a hose that you don't want it to when power is off, because you really need to control the water. And this is the interface. This is the app. Eve has its own app that you can control the Wi-Fi outlets with, but I prefer the Apple Home Mini. It's organizing, and you can, you know, give them different rooms, put them in different batches. As you can see on the top, I have fill the water. This fills the water and the reservoir. I actually cut a line in a sink cold water inlet. I put a shark bite piece on there, and I sent it to an automatic valve that I can turn on or off and fill my reservoir. And the next batch is all my foods. I got Power SI, Bloom and Grow, etc., etc. And then as I do that, I have some Wi-Fi cameras that I monitor the process with. I'm looking inside the reservoir. Sometimes you want to see, and as you can see, I can watch it drain or fill. These are sped up, so you can see the process of it that's actually feeding right now, going forward in time. And then backwards in time, you can see how it fills. I have a float valve in there, so it cannot overfill. Because I have found that if you lose connection with your router, your modem, you lose internet, it'll stay on. Or if you lose power, I think it will turn itself off, but you really do need a float valve because you cannot have hundreds of gallons of water on your floor. And then I also monitor my reservoir with a permanent Guardian meter. This is a Blue Lab, and I just keep all the meters submerged in the reservoir. I keep the pH pen actually down in the outlet of the reservoir at the bottom because I find that part stays wet and you do not want your pH pen to dry out. So let's try it out. We're going to fill the reservoir. Oh, actually we are going to do a little bit of feeding. And I'm going to count it out. The way that I have designed this is when I put all the silicone tubes into the reservoir, I sat there with a milliliter cup and I timed out, okay, so how much Power SI bloom do I want? I want 0.5 milliliters per gallon. I have 40 gallons or so, so I'm going to get 20 milliliters for one dose. So I sat there with a milliliter cup and I timed it so I can just count these out and I know exactly how much is going in my reservoir. This is my CalMag and my pH down. I just have them memorized by heart. pH down's in the middle and CalMag's the one on the top. And luckily the parabolic pumps have like a little dial on them where you can turn them up or down, meaning making them pump faster or slower, and I timed them so they are in sync with each other, exactly how much pH down I need and exactly how much CalMag I need. Those things are timed even though they're dispersing different amounts of solution. And that's my A and B, and I like to watch it go in sometimes. And the reservoir is also being stirred by an Aero mixer that I control with my Wi-Fi outlets. And then as I feed my A and B food, I watch my ppms rise. I find that while the reservoir is mixing, which I let it mix the whole time just to try to get those two A and B food elements kind of evenly dispersed and away from each other, because you know you don't want to mix them, you can lock out nutrients that way. So I want them to really get into the water quickly. But I'll turn it off around 1,000 parts per million, and I notice that once I turn off the Aero mixer, the parts per million will rise considerably, like 250 ppm. And honestly, this system's pretty slick. And this is Flex, that's another piece of the puzzle for the drip hydro system. And truth be told, I am in another country right now, and I am controlling all of this from my phone in Europe, and my grow is in the States. So that's pretty trippy. When you really think about it, it's a huge benefit, and I mean, I don't see how it could be done any other way, honestly. Like, especially if you're feeding 100 plants like I often do, back and forth with different rooms, veg and flower. You know, they're on different parts of their life cycle. I need that flexibility, and you can have that flexibility too. You can make this system. When I looked into automation at first, I obviously found the Dosatron, and the Dosatrons are wicked expensive. Those things are like $700 a pop or something like that, and times 5 times 7, you know, like it's just super impractical. But this way, it's really easy and it's accessible, it's affordable. It does cost a little bit of money to set up, but time is money. And instead of spending 4 hours a day, every other day, doing all this watering stuff, now it takes me 10 minutes. I can do it anywhere in the literal world and at my convenience. Sometimes I even do it when I'm in the shower, you know? I mean, you just can't beat that. And here we go. We're looking at about 1,300 parts per million. That's great. You know, they recommend up to 15, but I don't mind. I like to let the nutrients sit a little bit because I want to monitor the pH. I want the pH to be, I grow in cocoa, so 5.8 to 6 is ideal. And like I said, I've timed it out, so if I count out 25 seconds with my pH down running, I know that that is going to hit the mark for me every single time. Yeah, I feel pretty confident about this. I'll send this to my flower room. That's where this is going. I just turned a room into flower. We'll take a look at that room a little bit later on in the video. Or maybe not actually. I want to make this advertiser friendly even though I'm a brand new channel. I do want to make a lot of videos that I don't have to put an age restriction on. I really just want to talk about the tech and how to implement some of these systems and how to make it cool, how to make it easy. And here we go, we're pumping the water to the room. All my electric valves, those are on the bottom. The drain to sink, it'll probably come back. But I have one that's drain to sink, send to room 1, send to room 2, and then send to mothers. So I can send them to 4 different places, and I plan on sending them to more. You know, I designed the system to suit room 1 and 2, and then I added mothers, and then I found the need to add drain to sink because sometimes I do mix the nutrients wrong and it's a huge pain in the butt, especially if I'm not there. So drain to sink lets me ditch a whole reservoir in 30 seconds. It'll pump the whole thing out and I can start over again. Not ideal, but sometimes shit happens and you gotta do what you gotta do, so yeah, I let the reservoir mix. I want the temp to come up a little bit, but sometimes I just don't have the time, so I'm going to send it a little cold out of the tap. As long as my pH is good, my parts per million are good, that's what I really care about. Yeah, it's pretty nifty, and I really wanted to share this with everybody. I have never met anyone that does it quite the way that I do it, and I see people like watering their plants one by one, and it gets out of control. If it's anything more than 4, it's really ridiculous. So here's my whole setup so you can see all of my drip hydro foods. I get them in 2.5 gallon jugs. They're just accessible, easy. And then those are all my parabolic pumps. And it's a functional chaos, I assure you. It looks crazy, but it all works, and that's what really matters to me, that it works, that I understand the system, that it kind of is bulletproof. There's always little kinks to work out, like the end of the silicone hoses that go in the food itself. I cut them to make them fit a little bit better, but that's all I'm going to share for this video. I think it's a great start. Thanks for watching. You should subscribe because I'm going to make way more videos.